Today we are going to study about the structure of leaves and then we'll try to understand why they are also known as the food factories of plants. Okay. So first of all, let us understand what does a leaf do? Right. The first purpose of a leaf is that it prepares food. Right. At the same time, it also helps the plants in a lot of life processes. For example, breathing. And there is a lot more that we'll study in the subsequent slides. So, how does leaves do all these purposes that we are just discussing? Or maybe we'll discuss in the later slides. Okay, because it has certain components. Okay, so what are those components? So, they are known as parts of a leaf. Right, so the first part is known as the leaf blade or lamina. So, if you look into this figure, so this is the leaf blade. So, it is the broad, flat, and green part. So, this entire thing is the leaf blade or the lamina. Right, what is the purpose of this? It makes food for the plant. So it is the leaf blade wherein the food is made. Okay. And how is the leaf blade able to make food? We have already studied that plants need water, carbon dioxide, and sunlight to prepare food. Right. So the water is coming from the root, carbon dioxide is coming from the atmosphere, and then we have sunlight. Sunlight falls into the leaf blade, and this leaf blade contains a pigment called chlorophyll. Right. So chlorophyll is the green pigment in the leaf and it absorbs sunlight, which helps then subsequently to prepare the food. So again, what is a leaf blade? It is the broad, flat, green part of a plant, right? And it helps to prepare food. Then we have this midrib. So if you look at this particular thing, it is known as a midrib. Okay. So it is the main vein running in the middle of the leaf. So it is a sort of a vein. We'll see what veins are. The purpose of this is it provides strength and support to the leaf. So without it, the leaves are not going to survive, right? So it will not have sufficient strength to stand in place. Okay, so that is why the midrib is important, right? Then we have the veins, right? So we already saw that midrib is a type of vein, right? So vein is a combination of a very small lines that are spread across the leaves. So they are spread throughout. So if you look at all these components, they are the veins, and this midrib is also a type of vein. Okay, what is the purpose of this? So just like our veins in the body, it carries blood, right, to different parts of the body. So the blood also contains food and other particles, right? Say minerals and all. So the purpose of veins is also the same. So it carries water to the leaf, first of all. Okay, and then once the food is prepared, it is also responsible for transporting this food to different parts. Okay. Then we have petiole, right? So this is the petiole. What does it do? It attaches the stem to the leaf, right? So it joins the leaf to the stem. Then we have the tip, right? So this is the pointed end of the leaf, right? So if you look at this, this is the tip of a leaf, right? The major purpose of this is to help water drip off. Otherwise, there will be a lot of weight coming from that water if the water is not dripping off from the leaf, right? Eventually, it may collapse. Okay, so that is why we have this tip that helps excess water drip off from the surface of the leaf. So how does leaves within a plant prepare food? We know that leaves are known as food factories, right? So they use a few simple things in order to prepare food for the plant, right? So what are those things that the plant need? The first thing is sunlight, right? So sunlight is a source of energy for the plant and it comes from the sun and it is responsible for providing energy, right? Who absorbs the sunlight in leaf? So we have already seen that it is the leaf blade or lamina that contains chlorophyll, and that chlorophyll absorbs the sunlight. Okay. The second thing it needs is water. So water comes from the soil via the roots and then travels to the leaf, wherein it is carried by the veins. Right. The third thing that it needs is carbon dioxide. Right. So carbon dioxide comes from the atmosphere and enters the plant. So just like we have nose for breathing, plants have stomata, right, which is the counterpart of our nose. So that is where the carbon dioxide is taken in from, right? So we now know where from exactly where these are coming from and what inside the plants are absorbing. Right. So once it finds these three things simultaneously, it uses this to prepare food. Right. What is food? Food is known as glucose. Right. So the food prepared by plants is known as glucose. So it is made by the leaf and used by the plant for energy and growth. So it is the same thing that we consume as well. Right. So glucose is an instant source of energy. So this food is made by the leaf and then it is transported back to other parts of the plant wherein they use it for growth and other life processes. Okay, also some of this food. So plants also store this food, right? Such that they can use it later, right? How do they store it? They store it as starch. So you have glucose. If you combine multiple glucose molecules, it becomes a starch. So in simple words, starch is a combination of glucose. Okay, a large number of glucose. Another byproduct of photosynthesis is oxygen, which we know is required by us for breathing, right? So it is released into the air through stomata. So again, stomata takes in carbon dioxide and it releases oxygen, right? So it is the opposite of what we do. So we breathe in oxygen and we release carbon dioxide. However, plants take in carbon dioxide and release oxygen during the day, right? So how does the equation look like? So we have sunlight, we have water, we have carbon dioxide. So these are the inputs required for the plants. And as a result of that, it produces food and oxygen. Right. So the process by which plants prepare their own food using sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide to give food and oxygen is known as photosynthesis. Okay. And since plants prepare their own food, that is why leaves are known as the food factories, right, of plants. So because it is the place wherein the plants prepare their food. So once plants have prepared their food, they need something to store it. Right. In the previous classes, we have studied plants have stored their foods in root. They've also stored their food in stem. Right. Now we'll see some examples wherein plants store their food in the form of leaf. Right. So again, we have studied that they used to store food in root because they wanted to use it during times of crisis. Plants store their food in leaves because they want to have some source or storage wherein they can use it instantaneously. That is why they store their food in leaves so that they can have access to instant energy. Okay. So leaves make food for the plant. Some of this food is stored in the leaves as starch. So we have already seen starch as a combination of a large number of glucose molecules. Okay, there are certain examples of leaves that store food. The first example is cabbage. We have lettuce, then we have spinach, and we have aloe vera. So all these cases, plants are storing their food in leaves. Okay, so there is also a test to check the presence of food in leaves. Right. So by doing that test, we can detect whether food is stored as starch in that leaves or not. Right. So that test is known as a starch test. So it is used to detect starch. That is why it is known as starch test. Right. So iodine has a property. Right. So this is iodine. It is orangish or brownish in color. So it has the property that if it comes in contact with starch, it forms a blue-black color, right? So if we drop some drops of iodine, what will happen if starch is present in the leaf will turn blue-black. If it is not turning blue-black, then we can confirm that starch is not present or the plant did not prepare food in that leaf. Right, so this is one of the tests that we do to detect the presence of starch or to detect whether plants have prepared their food in that leaf or not. Okay. While discussing about the structure of plants and photosynthesis, we saw that there was something that was used to absorb carbon dioxide or take in carbon dioxide and release oxygen. So what is that? It is stomata, right? Just like we have a nose for breathing, plants have stomata, right? And not only breathing, it also serves additional purposes that we are going to discuss. So the leaves have tiny pores or holes. They are known as stomata, right? What is the function of stomata? They help in gaseous exchange and water loss, right? We'll see why losing water is helpful for plants. So first of all, they help in gaseous exchange. That is, they help the plants to take in carbon dioxide and release oxygen. So they are exchanging, right, gases. So what are stomata? Stomata are tiny pores, mostly found in the underside of leaves. So if you see, this is the front side and this is the underside or the back side of leaves. So you'll notice that stomata are mostly present in the underside of leaves and not the front sides. Why is it? Because if the stomata is present in the underside of leaf, first of all, it will be protected from the harsh weather and then the sunlight. And at the same time, it will have minimal loss of water, right? So the plants will lose less water if the leaves, if the stomata is present in the underside rather than at the front side. Okay. So let us see the function of stomata and the structure. Right. So this is how a stomata looks. So this is a closed view of stomata. And what does it contain? It contains a guard cell. So this is the cell known as guard cell. It helps the stomata in opening and closing. Okay, so this is the stomatal pore or the hole. So pore basically means hole. So the guard cell, it controls the opening and closing of stomata. Okay. So the first function of stomata is gaseous exchange. Right. How does it do gaseous exchange? The first thing is it lets in carbon dioxide for the leaf to make food. Because carbon dioxide is required to prepare food, CO2 is inhaled by the plant through the stomata. Okay. Then once the food is prepared and oxygen is set to release, again stomata is used to release oxygen into the atmosphere. Okay, so which is the gas that we use to breathe. This is the first function, that is gaseous exchange in plants. The second function is transpiration, also known as water loss. Right? Transpiration is the loss of water in the form of water vapor from the leaves through stomata. So plants sometimes they may have excess water, so they want to get rid of that water. So stomata also helps them get rid of that excess water. And the process by which that excess water is lost in the form of water vapor is known as transpiration. Right? So through transpiration, water vapor escapes into the air. Now, how does stomata help in transpiration? So when the stomata is open, water from the inside of the leaf evaporates into the air spaces. Right? So because of evaporation and the stomata being open, right, the water is escaping in the form of gas, right, through this pore. Right, so the water vapor goes out through the stomatal pore. This loss of water vapor through stomata is called transpiration. But why losing water helps the plants? So it has three functions. The first thing is helps in the absorption and movement of water in plant. So water moves from roots to leaf, right? So that is why that upward pull is required from the stomata, and it comes because of the stomach. Right? If there was no upward pull, water would not have been absorbed from the root to the leaves. Okay. The next thing is it keeps the plant cool. So if you have noticed that in winter, usually we sweat, right? And sweating helps us stay cool. Right. So the same thing transpiration does. So when plants lose water, right? So it is just like sweating. Right. So it keeps the plants cool and regulates the temperature. It also helps in maintaining the turgidity or the firmness of plants. Why so? Because if the flow of water is continuous, right, from the roots to the leaves and then to the atmosphere, then this continuous flow of water ensures that the stem remains firm. right? And is not weakened or does not follow. So now that we are done with the concepts, we'll see some challenges and check our understanding of the topic. Okay, the first question, we need to look into this figure and then answer the given question. It says, why are most stomata found on the underside of leaves? So this is the front side and this is the underside. And we have seen that stomata is mostly present in underside. Is it to absorb more sunlight? No, we know that stomata is not required to absorb sunlight. It is the chlorophyll that is required. Okay. Is it to reduce water loss? Yes, it is to reduce water loss. Why? Because if the plant loses a lot of water, we have already seen that transpiration is required. So water loss is required. So plants need to lose water, but it does not need to lose excess water or a large number of water. Right? Otherwise, it will dry up. That is why stomata is present in the underside, because if it is exposed to sunlight, it will lose more water. If it is on the underside, then it is going to lose relatively less water. Okay. Is it to make leaves green? You know that chlorophyll makes the leaves green. To carry food to all parts of the leaves? No, it is the purpose of veins. Right? Four leaves are shown below. Which leaf will make the leaves food? Okay, the first is healthy leaf, green leaf. Right, so it can prepare food given that it comes in contact with sunlight. Then you have yellow leaf with very little chlorophyll. So it has very little chlorophyll. So it can make less food because it has very low amount of chlorophyll. Right. So chlorophyll is that green pigment. So that is why this is not looking green. The third is a green leaf covered with black paper and kept in sunlight. Okay. So it is covered with black paper and then kept in sunlight. So it is partially covered, not fully covered. Okay. And then you have normal green leaf kept in sun. So this will prepare the most amount of food because it is a normal green leaf and it is kept in sunlight. It is a healthy green leaf, but we are not specified whether it has sunlight or not. So we'll assume it has sunlight. Okay. So, but relatively lesser because this one is completely exposed. This can be inside the room. So it will get a little sunlight. That is why it will prepare relatively less food than this. Then between these two, this is covered in black paper. If it was fully covered, then it could have not prepared any food. It is partially covered, so it can prepare some food. Right? And it is kept in sunlight as well, so it is going to prepare food in these portions. This one, it has very little chlorophyll. Right? So first of all, it is not directly exposed to sunlight, and it has also low chlorophyll. So it will make very less amount of food. So among all these options, this will prepare the least amount. Okay, remember that what is needed for photosynthesis, that will be used to decide whether a plant will make less food or more food. The first thing is sunlight, right? The second thing is chlorophyll. The third thing is water. All of these must be present for a plant to prepare food. A student covered part of a leaf with black paper for 2 days and then tested it for starch. Which part of the leaf will turn blue-black when iodine is added? Right, so this part of this leaf is covered with black paper. So this is the middle part. It is covered with black paper. And then it kept the plant in the sun, gave it access to water such that it can prepare food. And then next, what he did is he tested it for starch. So basically, he put the iodine solution. If it turns blue-black, then it means chlorophyll was able to absorb sunlight and then it was able to prepare food, which means starch is present. Right. So we know that this part is shaded, right? Or covered. So it cannot absorb sunlight. Why? Because chlorophyll must be exposed to sunlight for it to absorb. Okay. So that is why it will not, this portion will not be able to prepare food. However, these two portions will be able to prepare food because it is exposed to sunlight directly. Right. So if you look into this figure, so this will remain as it is. It will not change color because food was not prepared here. The remaining two portions will turn blue black because starch is present. So B is the correct answer. Right? Which of the following is correct about the role of chlorophyll in leaves? It changes carbon dioxide into oxygen. No, it is done by stomata and then via photosynthesis. It absorbs sunlight to help make food. Yeah, it is function of chlorophyll. Right, it's responsible for absorbing sunlight, and it is also responsible for providing green color to the leaves. It absorbs water from the soil. No, it is done by the roots. It gives leaves their shape and support. No, it is the midrib that does it. Right? Okay. So I think we are done with this questions. And next class, what we are going to do, we are going to start with flowers, right? And we'll see different types of plants based on flowers.